So there's an old saying, we pack our fears. Now, that adage is true in many areas of thru-hiking mentalities, but rarely more so than when it comes to first aid kits. Hey YouTube, Todd here, and welcome to this week's Hiking a Different Path. I have long had a full-blown first aid kit, or FAK, in my vehicle or backpack, and this first aid kit is the one that I have kept in my car and taken on most of the section hikes I've done over the past few years. It's quite full. It's really fancy, and it has a lot of things in it that, frankly, I have never used. Partly because carrying such things in the natural world is inherently lighter than on a thru hike, the excesses of this first aid kit are more easily forgiven. Still, the fact that I have so much in the first aid kit and use so little of it was reason enough to do a complete overhaul, at least of the first aid kit for the one that I'll be taking on my thru hike of the Appalachian Trail next year. This particular everyday carry version of my first aid kit comes in at a whopping 410 grams. That's 14.5 ounces, which is scaring the hooey out of a pound of stuff. It was obvious to me that the items brought in the first aid kit and how I carried those items had to be changed. Any weight savings I could find here would certainly be worthwhile. So, drawing on the experiences of the previous section and day hikes that I'd done, I felt like I knew what items I needed and didn't need on a thru hike. There are a couple of caveats at the start. My ideas about what is worthy and unworthy of placing in a first aid kit for a thru hike should be taken subjectively. Your personal opinions, health concerns, and comfort levels should always be considered first and foremost, certainly above others' views, even those of seasoned hikers and outdoor enthusiasts. Now, lest you think that statement be my attempt at a dodge for legal purposes, understand that everyone is different and has different needs and fears. Secondly, you'll do yourself a great service to learn and understand basic first aid skills. Buy a book, take a class, or shadow someone who knows more than you. Understanding basic first aid will allow you to mentally solve the problems before you have to address how to deal with an injury physically on the trail. So, what am I taking in my first aid kit for this thru hike? Well, the list is pretty short, but I believe it to be more than enough for my needs. First up, pretty basic, Band-Aids. Just 3 each in a large, medium, and small variety. If I need more later, these can be sent in a resupply package or purchased at a town stop. Antibiotic cream. These small packets go a long way, and I'm only going to take about 3 of these in the kit. Steri strips. Now, steri strips may seem overkill or technical, but I've used them successfully in the past for wounds that would later require stitches. Now, see this small scar on my hand? Steri strips did such a good job of holding the wound together, I probably could have gotten by without the stitches. Now, there's a funny story that goes with that scar involving the phrases International Hand Model and Holiday Inn Express. So, give the video a like. If I get 50 likes on the video, I'll do a bonus upload of the story. I guarantee you'll laugh. KT tape. Now, while KT tape is generally used for muscle strains and joint support in sports, I have found it to be a superior method to stop blisters from forming. Now, early attention to hot spots on your feet where blisters will form is essential, but I think it works better than mule skin. Now, I'll take 2 or 3 strips for both of those purposes. The tick twist. Now, I treat my clothing with permethrin and my skin with picaridin to prevent my dealing with ticks generally. In the event I do find a tick attached to my person, the tick twist is a proven tool to remove the tick and not leave any of its mouth parts attached. Failure to remove the entire tick head is where most people fail when dealing with these horrible pests. There are just far too many diseases to risk the bite of a tick. Next, we have nail clippers, essential for proper foot care. Now, a properly fitted shoe is a paramount consideration. However, you will want to keep your toenails trimmed close. Failure to do so will result in the loss of the nail. It's not fun or pretty, and it's kind of gross. Then we have hand sanitizer. Now, while my hand sanitizer is not kept in the first aid kit, I hang mine on my pack for ease and consistent use. You'll need it for after nature calls, before you eat, or after filtering water. Then we have a mirror. A mirror is another item not housed in the first aid kit. I use the mirror on my compass. The mirror is used for the daily tick checks that you should be doing. It allows you to observe the harder to see parts of your anatomy. I get bonus points for adding another use for the compass for those keeping score at home. And next we have Tylenol, acetaminophen, used mostly for when I'm running a fever. I don't bring a large supply of this, just enough to get me off the trail and to a town for more Tylenol or a doctor's appointment if needed. Benadryl. Now, I am allergic to bee stings, although it's been a very long time since I tangled with a bee or a wasp. Irregardless, it's a smart move to have some form of analgesic medicine should I get stung or have some other type of allergic reaction. Ibuprofen, also known as vitamin I to hiking circles. I do carry it, but try to use it sparingly. There was a time where I used it almost daily, but concerns about the effects of ibuprofen on my body had me pretty much stopping cold turkey. I also worried about masking injuries with overuse of the anti-inflammatory. I keep enough to get me to town and either add more or see a physician if I'm unsure of the extent of my injuries. Then we have Aquamira. Now, this water purification option may seem an odd addition for a first aid kit. Still, it's all about the backups and redundancies where my Graham Weenie alter ego makes it possible. I keep Aquamira on hand in case my water filtration system has a failure. It could be the filter or it could be the bag. I make certain to filter water at all times. Giardia and Cryptosporidia are just too nasty to take chances with for the success of my through hike. And then we have Imodium. This is an anti-diarrhea medicine. Now, this should speak to it for itself as to why I have this in the first aid kit. Now, I can tell you from personal experience that Imodium has saved several hikes of mine in the past. I simply refuse to hike without it regardless of the distance. If I'm going in the woods, I'm taking my Imodium. Next, we have a multi-tool. Now, obviously, I may be stretching the term of multi-tool a little bit with this Swiss Army knife, but it does indeed fill the bill for many uses. It has a knife, a nail file, scissors, which I generally use about 10-to-1 over the blade, toothpicks, and tweezer. This multi-tool is counted as part of the first aid kit, but I keep it in the hip belt pocket of my pack for ease of access. Lastly is the Dyneema dry bag I carry everything inside of. This one I made myself. I used a kit from Ripstop by the roll, and I modified the size a little bit because I had a lot less to fit in the bag, and I wanted to shave a few more grams before I finished the project. I know, it's a sickness, right? I chose this because I intend to carry the first aid kit in the outside mesh pocket of my pack. Dry bags are easy to make if you have rudimentary thread injection skills and a stout but patient heart. Or you can just buy one from any of a dozen different websites. All in and ready to go, my new version of the first aid kit weighs in at 162 grams or 5.7 ounces. That's better than a 2/3 reduction in weight and a lot more efficient carry method than the bulky kit that I would have carried before. Now, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a coin flip among those looking at whether this incarnation of my first aid kit is either too heavy or too light. The original version was certainly heavy by comparison. Your choices about what you carry in your first aid kit should be carefully thought through and make sense for where you're hiking and personal comfort levels. It's as simple as that. If you believe you have to have an item with you to feel confident, then carry it. If not, and the conditions don't warrant the need, don't take it. What items do you think I should add to a proper first aid kit for a through hike? What should I pull out of this one? Be sure and leave a like and a comment below, and I hope that this has given you something to think about for your thru-hiking first aid kit. And until next week, take a hike and love somebody along the way.